I've gotten some questions lately on what I studied at Harvard, so I figured I might answer what I chose, how I chose it, and what actually mattered in the years following graduation. Let's start at the beginning. When I first came to Harvard, I thought I would study government and economics, and I took an economics class my first year. And this was because economics was my favorite class in high school, and government was something I'd had some familiarity with the summer programs I did. So I thought it made sense for my application, and that's how I entered. But I remember looking through the course catalog at what classes, just based on description alone, actually interested me. And I found all of these classes in sociology, just class and culture, anything relating to socioeconomic classes, I just wanted to learn about. I was in a completely new environment with students who were here on completely need-based financial aid covering their tuition to students who didn't even qualify and never bothered. So it was a whole gamut. And me, I was kind of like, whoa, this is a wild place that I've just entered of people of all sorts of backgrounds, and I kind of just wanted to understand what was going on. So sociology classes really jumped out at me. I thought that I would major in sociology, but there were all of these conversations I ended up having with my parents about what would actually get me employed. Of course, as immigrant parents, they were really, really worried that I would just major in sociology and I couldn't get a job after college. And this was a huge conflict between us, to the point where I did end up picking something that I thought would be more practical. And I picked applied math, but that didn't actually make sense. And luckily, at some point, someone was like, have you considered statistics? Because statistics is actually the tool you use to study sociology. So I really wanted something to pair with sociology. I would not let that go. That was actually what I really enjoyed studying. This was a huge conflict between me and my parents. In the end, I would say their instinct was right, and here's why. Sociology is the study of society and social behavior at large. Now, if you want to study it, statistics is super useful because you're applying statistics to draw conclusions on populations of people. So this is a whole back and forth between me and my parents. For a whole semester, I was hating that they wanted me to do a STEM major. I mean, that was a huge conflict. The whole time I'm like, let me just do my sociology classes, not realizing you can do both. They didn't end up actually competing with each other. If you're struggling between two, here's what I've seen work. Because you can have a major and a minor, picking two where one of them is your true interest and the other one is practical can help you take the best of both worlds. You get to take the classes that you actually like, and you can also take classes in a hard science that you know is practical, and hopefully you do enjoy them, because I did like some of my statistics and computer science classes. Even if it's something like classics, one of my good friends in college studied classics and computer science as her joint degree, and she wrote her thesis on making a computer game that would help students learn Latin. And she would go on to present that topic at conferences. So that was a huge, really useful career move for her. And she made it work with something you wouldn't think to pair together, even though she initially faced doubts on how those would overlap. I've seen so many people have this big creative background, like they're really interested in writing, but then their actual major is computer science. And so they're able to write while freelancing on the side and making websites to help supplement their income while they're doing their writing passion. I've also seen a lot of worries about people who think, how do I pick a major that won't become obsolete because of AI? And that's where we all hear about critical thinking. And this is why I'm really glad I took sociology classes, because it's just a way of thinking about problems through that lens. A lot of sociology concepts I still think about, and that's just a way of like looking at topics in the world. So that was a big part and a big part of my identity. If you ask me what I studied at Harvard, I will probably lead with sociology, even though my actual major was statistics. One of my favorite classes was class and culture, and the professor would teach us about what are elements of high class versus low class. One of his assignments was for us to blog about what we noticed in day-to-day life and how it relates to a sociology concept that we were learning in class. And sociology was such a great lens for me to think about how my classmates acted and what was going on in my social life. Now, what actually mattered when it came to outside of college? I was a product manager for many years in my career. I didn't use statistics in my day-to-day, but I used concepts like how do you design an experiment and know if you have enough data to trust a conclusion. Well, for jobs, I am actually glad that I have a STEM major because it does make applying to jobs a lot easier, because I can always say, if I ever want to be a data scientist, it's so much easier for me to pivot into that than if I had been a pure sociology major. So in that way, I am grateful that I took that route. What I actually declared and what I would put on my resume when I started applying to internships was sociology and statistics together. And then I would put my secondary as computer science, because I was also taking computer science classes as something I was interested in, and because some data science classes were considered a dual between computer science and statistics. Up until you graduate, you can change what your major is. And so by senior year, that was when I finally decided my major is statistics and my secondary is sociology. Having completed all the requirements for both, I got internships across user experience, customer support, technical support, and then ultimately I got a user experience design internship at Goldman Sachs. I do think it was helpful just to get through the screening process to show that I was technical. So I'm glad I did a STEM major. But what I think actually made a bigger difference were the side projects I did outside of class, which was making my own website. And when I was doing my interview, I talked about this project, and then I got to show that I understood how to make a website. I understood technical concepts like what is a database and how does that work, and those things helped me with the interview. And those all came from my computer science classes, actually. I took a introduction to user experience design class, and that's where I learned the bulk of things, and that was computer science. And I really liked that class. I even thought about doing computer science, but because I was so stuck on sociology and I knew that's really what I wanted to study, I wanted some kind of STEM major that made sense and paired well with sociology. But you don't have to do that. Between taking applied math classes and then realizing that statistics was a way better fit for me, I did waste time on classes that didn't count towards my major, weren't even something I was actually interested in. I was just doing it to fulfill a requirement, and then I ended up dropping applied math and going straight for statistics. I wish that I had discovered statistics earlier by realizing it just fits so much better with sociology. I'm so glad. I think I had a professor point out to me, like, why are you doing applied math on sociology? Why not statistics? And that was just such a light bulb moment. So glad somebody said that to me. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see the biggest mistakes that I made while I was at Harvard, check this out next.